workers are tired from their long day's work. They're heading home to wash their feet and get some rest. We let our hearts nod off for a moment and wait for night to fall so we can go out and scratch the earth for a yam root or some sweet potatoes to eat, a puddle of water to sip. Between them and us, the dogs, who have been running all day, begin to get drowsy, their bellies stuffed with a human feast their race is not about to forget. Soon they'll turn wild and even start biting into living, moving flesh because they've figured out that there are no longer any borders between animals and their masters. But for the time being, tiny, clandestine peace knows that there is not a single living soul out on the roads that can capture it. And so it can go out to greet the tall grasses as they straighten their spines on the hillsides, and the birds that stayed all day with their heads tucked under their wings, so as not to bear witness, so they'll never be called to testify at some tribunal, a day which will surely come. Peace goes out to greet the flowers gorged with water from the rainy season, still struggling to exhale a fragrance of life in spite of it all, in a place where the stench of rot has seeped into everything. That's what you would say when you still used to speak, Mama. Your words full of holes while you waited for your son Bosco to come back from the cabaret that night in 1997. You would use the present tense at that late hour of the day to share your memories of the month of April 1994, as if those 3 years had not irremediably separated us. And the white wreath of smoke that escaped from your hand or came from my half-open mouth, yours, Imhara, mine, Inhore, two cigarette brands from before, the only ones we still wanted to smoke, as if to ward off the killing time, unless it was just a way to suffocate so slowly on the effluvia of the past. Our wreaths met and enfolded us in a reassuring cloud. Sitting on the same wobbly little wooden bench as before on the Barza, the terrace, on the main road in Butare, and the broad trunks of the jacaranda trees hid us from the passers-by. You lapsed into your memories on the month of milk that became the month of blood, ukwezi kwa mata kwahindutse ukw'amaraso, between two moments of silence when you might just as well have been sobbing your heart out. And I listened to you, wondering whether my hand, which was itching to squeeze your wrist, might not startle you. So I didn't move, but blow my smoke toward yours so that it would reach you and loosen your clenched sorrow. Although I knew nothing about chemistry, I recall that lovely word sublimation from the time our teacher explained how solids turn to gas, and I thought that there must be a procedure which, in the same way, would allow organisms that had become rigid to blow away in the form of smoke without dying for all that, simply in order to meet harmoniously in the ether, invisible to anyone going by. I pictured myself as Inhore, a warrior dancer with long ivory hair, carrying a blunt lance and a tiny shield of sculpted wood, whirling around you, Imhara hounded antelope, with your tortured boar horns. I'd surround you with a row of rescued words, resuscitated words. as a violent Inhore, with my arms outstretched, my back arched, I'd cause the earth to tremble. My feet will be decorated with little Amayugi bells, and I'd cause the threatening enemy to retreat by vaunting your mighty deeds, your children, your lovers, your freedom that had become at such a cost. And while the night helped us to vanish quickly into the gloom of the bazaar, I listened to your voice, nodding my head, and in my movements were and if my movements were imperceptible, because I had long forgotten how to touch you, up there in the smoke, I caused them to dance, those strands of white sisal decorating my brow like an inhore, dancing poet, ceremonial combatant capable of warding off your death that month of April.
Thank you. As you all can hear, that's a really beautiful opening to this book. It's an intergenerational story that was Blanche, the middle generation that was speaking, sitting with her mother, Immaculata. Is how you would say that, correct?
Yes.
And then later we'll meet Blanche's son, Stokely. Beata, why did you choose to open the book with that?
The book is divided in three voices, I will say, and each time it's one voice is a chapter, and this is the chapter when you can hear the voice of Blanche, the daughter. So maybe I can first start by explaining what is the plot, what is the story. It's a family story that takes place between France and Rwanda, and it starts in the late 50s, just after the independence. The story of this family, not the book, the story of the family. It starts in the late 50s, just after the independence, and it ends nowadays. And so, as I said, there are three voices, and those three voices represent three generations. The first generation is Immaculata. She's the mother and then becomes the grandmother, and she will spend her entire life in Africa, in Rwanda. She is a survivor of the genocide against the Tutsi, and she's a person who has been silenced by the painful memories of her life, of her family's life. The second character, Blanche, and this chapter starts with Blanche, but immediately after the start, you hear the voice of the mother, and it's always, for me, the entanglement of the different voices. Blanche is the daughter of Immaculata, and she was born and raised in Rwanda by Immaculata, a single mother, but she managed to seek refuge in France in 1994. Whereas her mother, Immaculata, will stay in Rwanda, and she's, as I said, she will become a survivor of the genocide. Blanche settles in Europe, in France. She's a mixed race. Her father is French, and she will continually travel between one land to another in order um, to renew broken ties with her Rwandan family. And when her grandson Stokely, who you mentioned, is born, and he will be born and raised in France, she will try to connect her son with her mother, and then the third voice will be the one of Stokely. At least it's the I the narrator will tell the story of this little child, mixed race child too. And so yeah, the beginning for me was a way to meet with those two characters, to meet also with a situation, because it starts in 1997. This is the moment when Blanche comes back in Rwanda for the first time after the genocide, and so there is the feeling that something is wrong in this family. There is a lot of pain. There is a lot of unspoken words, and yeah. So it's a story that starts with the fragment of a story. Blanche talks, but immediately after she brings the voice of her mother. It's a confession will be almost immediately be interrupted in the second page, uh, because the conversation between the mother and the daughter is really hard, and it's a family that carries a very heavy burden. Mostly the burden of Blanche is the she feels kind of guilty because she has survived. She has left at the beginning of the genocide, so she hasn't been through the whole thing, and you can hear that the mother is thinking about Bosco. Bosco is the son of Immaculata. He's the half brother of Blanche, and you don't hear him. So the narrator talks about him, and he's he's not mixed race. He's a 100% black, but he's mixed in another way because Immaculata is Tutsi, but the father of Bosco is Hutu, so he has another kind of mixed identity. And he was during the genocide. He was gone, and he was part of the RPF, the rebellious army that ended the genocide. So he has another kind of trauma. Uh, so so that's the beginning, and you have everything there, but most of all you also have the main scene, which is Butare. As Omar said in the introduction, Butare is the second city, used to be the second city of Rwanda. Now it has been renamed, and it's called Huye, but back then, when I was born and raised there, it was called Butare. And so those two characters, they are sitting on a bench in the main road of Butare that used to be planted with jacaranda trees, and those jacaranda trees will also be kind of a testimony of the story of the family during decades. That will have also a role in the in the story there. Yes, that's what I can say about the opening scene.
Yeah, thank you. You explained it very well. I hope everybody gets the chance to read the book for themselves. But for those that haven't had that chance yet, that's a great way to, yeah, give everybody the background of it. It
Mm.
struck me as I read it, using the three, different narrators and kind of four as you get to the very, very end of the book, and contrasting Blanche and Immaculata's experience, especially right at the beginning, their experience of giving birth to their sons. And you chose to put stories right next to each other to kind of contrast that. Um, and then also later, as throughout the book, the use of their voices, right? Immaculata deals with a lot of her trauma by quieting down, even though she had been very vocal her whole life, correct? And then Blanche struggling with that as well. How did you, well, first you chose to use women as kind of the main characters.